Be the Talk, episode 272, featuring Josh Miles. Welcome to Be the Talk. We go behind the talk 7 days a week for tips and techniques to help you change the world. I'm Nathan Eckel, and a talker myself. I'm interviewing others who change the world with their talk. You can too, even if you've never given a talk before. Let's get started with today's show. We are live with Josh Miles. Josh, are you ready to talk?
You betcha.
Josh Miles is a caffeine and Twitter addict, the vice president of marketing for SMPS. Josh also speaks coast to coast on branding and marketing, including his role hosting the podcast Obsessed with Design. Josh is also the author of Bold Brand 2.0, How to Leverage Brand Strategy to Reposition, Differentiate, and Market Your Professional Services Firm. Josh loves to cook meat, eat anything with bacon, love it, hit the gym, play the guitar, and travel to new places with his family. Josh Miles, welcome to the talk.
Nathan, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, your talk is called The Paradox of Brand Experience. It's a great talk because you talk about the murder of a groundhog in your driver's ed class. Where no animals were harmed in the making of this podcast, except perhaps the poor groundhog. And you talk about how your work in branding, it's kind of a mix of what I'm doing right now, which is a talk show host and therapist. So Josh, please take us behind the talk in just a moment. But before you do, you're gonna hate me for this, but I grabbed an Amazon review from Andrew Davis about your book, actually the original book, and he says, I wish I'd had access to bold brand thinking 10 years ago when I started my firm. My value prop to clients and the way I differentiate my company and the services we offer might have been completely different. So you're making a big impact. Back to the talk. Please, Josh, take us behind the talk.
Yeah, it's the craziness of, I don't know if our listeners have ever experienced this or not, but you feel like sometimes you've given your best effort. You've done the best possible thing. You know that your work was A+, but for some reason, it just wasn't received as that. So there's this paradox, which is the way in which something is received, a service is received, can often come off as something less than excellent, just because little hiccups in the process. So really encouraging the audience and the listeners to think about how they're delivering a service and how much that impacts what that service feels like to the end customer or client.
Yeah, so we've evolved in business enough, and the competition and the expectations at this point is so high that it's not even about the product or the actual service anymore. It's the presentation. It is the spirit with which it's the ease of delivery. It's all of those things. This is really remarkable.
Yeah, one of the things that I was recalling in the talk was, real life experience as a kid, being in the dentist chair or at the orthodontist and feeling like, the ladies who were working on my mouth were there talking to each other, but it was like I wasn't even present because they're rattling off numbers and letters and they're talking about what they did over the weekend. They're not talking to me. They're not talking to the client or to the customer. And that would drive me absolutely crazy. And then they'd get done and they'd say, thank you. And I think, well, wow, did you even know I was here during the whole time? Or you get the opposite experience, which is, the hygienist that wants to talk to you the whole time while you've got your mouth wedged open. You can't possibly respond. So you can just
you grunt in Morse code, I think. If you're military, they might understand you if you do that, but otherwise it's kind of a joke.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, with that example, that's a great example because the dentist is drilling and talking to you about, your whatever irrelevant, inane thing just for the sake of doing that. What are you actually supposed to do? Or maybe worse, you're not even there or they're not even there. They're talking with their friend and they're drilling your teeth or doing whatever they're doing or flossing you. And you're thinking, oh, man, don't slip. Don't. It puts all I can understand how it puts all kinds of doubts in our minds. So in that kind of a case, Josh, what do you advise your clients to do? Dental clients or anyone else just using that scenario? What's a good medium?
And for me, a lot of my experience is in the business to business professional services space. And the reality is people hire experts to do work for them because you don't know how to do it yourself, or you don't have time, or don't have time to learn, or don't want to, be your own attorney or be your own consultant. So you're bringing somebody in to do work for you that you technically don't know if they did it right or not. Do you know if your accountant balanced your books right? Do you know if you did your tax return right? Do you know if your attorney did everything they could have to help you with a contract? You don't know. So you're just really going on faith that they've kind of got it figured out. And so really your experience in receiving that service has everything to do with how you feel about it. So if you feel like your accountant explained things in plain English, then you think, whoa, it sounds like he knows what he's talking about. And he wasn't just talking over my head, or, that your engineer or your architect is looking at all of these things that you wouldn't have considered. And they're really just explaining it to you in plain language and making you feel human as part of this, and not just having received some robotic thing.
Well, this is great because it really comes back to trust. I mean, it's all about, I think it was Chris Brogan or somebody wrote the classic trust agents 15 years ago when we didn't understand how to build trust online. And then we get that. Now it's like you've got trust to get you in the front door, but trust keeps you there all the way through. And if you're doing things that erode the trust, like, talking to your friend while you're flossing the patient, or, using accounting ease with your client instead of, de-siloing your speech, those things erode trust. And those are the things that keep us having one eye out for your competition and who can take care of us possibly better. So we've been enjoying this interview with Josh Miles. His talk is called The Paradox of Brand Experience. And we're going to be back in just a moment. We're going to pivot right back over to you, Talk Universe, because you have talks to give to change the world. And we're going to do that in a moment in the Blitz Round. Hey, Talk Universe. I hope you've been enjoying today's episode with today's guest. But you know what? Many people want more than that. Many people that listen to Be the Talk actually want to give a talk. And if that's you, you're not alone. Listen to the rest of this podcast. At the end, I'll have a free resource for you just for listening. And we're back with Josh Miles. It is time for the Blitz Round. I'm going to ask Josh a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of his branded talk. I believe it was a TEDx Purdue University talk.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so good for you. It's right down the street in Indiana. Maybe not right down the street, but it's great to be able to be local to that. My first question, were you invited to speak or did you apply?
Yeah, they had a last minute cancellation, so I was invited to fill the leadoff spot.
Nice. Okay. Well, what advice do you have for openers?
I learned something from another speaking coach a while back, which is to kind of shake your hands and feet and get your body moving to literally get the blood pumping through your veins. And that was something that I did right before that talk, and something that I taught to all the other guys who were queued up behind me to go on after me. And they at first thought I was crazy, and then I think they really got into it.
Yeah, because you kind of don't want that blood rush to your brain and to everywhere else as you're walking into the light, as if you were in the afterlife. But it's not the afterlife. It's it's walking out on a stage, and there are a lot of speakers that are giving talks, and I'm surprised at how many it's their first talk. So right. It's just amazing to me. Josh, are you a memorizer, improviser, or a blender?
I think I'm typically a shoot from the hip speaker. For this one in particular, I largely memorized what I wanted to talk about because I had such a tight time frame, and those TEDx talks are so programmed. And so we were aiming for 14 minutes for this particular TEDx. And I know they've kind of done a range, but it was pretty tightly memorized at that point.
Well, and you hit that because it was a shorter than maximum, 18 minutes. It was much shorter than that. So good for you. Was how how difficult or different was it to have to memorize or take that approach as opposed to keynoting or improvise or do what you normally do?
I had a lot of driving to do at that particular period of my life. So I did a lot of practicing in the car. So I would record it with the audio notes. I don't know that I went back and listened to it very often other than just to see what the time code was for all of the examples. So I probably just looked like I was talking to myself or maybe on speakerphone, but I did lots of practice in the car.
Well, Josh and I already, that's yet another way that we think alike. Because I literally, on the way to my audition, I was micro recording and reviewing and iterating on my way to my on-site audition in the car. It's amazing. Josh, what's a tip, tool, or technique that you would recommend that helped you prepare?
That's a great question. I usually shoot from the hip. And unsurprisingly, I was amazed by how well the talk went, since I'd actually practiced it. So it's funny, especially with quote unquote professional speakers, how easy it is to think, I've done that talk 3 times. I don't even need to look at the slides. I don't need to look at the script. I don't need to think about it. But, preparing in advance and actually feeling like you're just ready to rock when you get to the stage, I think is really important.
Here's the cut for time question. What was the part of your talk in preparation that was most painful that you had to cut out?
Oh, man. So there was more that I wanted to do at the end to sort of land the plane. And I was watching the clock quite literally from the stage, and I saw that I was getting close. So I just cut, there was probably another minute of kind of tying all the points together. And I was definitely regretful that I had to leave that on the cutting room floor.
For sure. And we've been enjoying the Blitz Round with Josh Miles. His talk is called The Paradox of Brand Experience. If you want to check out that talk, it's a great talk. You want to go to our show notes page at BeTheTalk.com. We'll have a clickable link where you can watch that, as well as we're going to have a link so that you can connect with Josh over at boldbrand.com. boldbrand.com. And we'll be back in just a moment for the final word of advice. Hey, Talk Universe, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you want to give the talk to change the world, but you don't know how or even where to start, no problem at all. Go to BeTheTalk.com/get accepted for my new 5-day email course that'll show you how. Absolutely free. Just go to BeTheTalk.com/get accepted. And we're back with the final word of advice for Talk Universe. What is it, Josh?
My final word of advice is thinking about who you want to speak to. And I've heard this advice so many times for writing, and I think it's the same for speaking, which is picture in your mind that one person that you're talking to. And if you write your talk for that person and to be helpful for them, it's amazing how many other people will actually receive from that talk and feel like you're speaking directly to them.
Well, Josh Miles, thank you so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thanks for having me. My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Be the Talk. For tips and resources to help you change the world, go to BeTheTalk.com. See you tomorrow.